Hi, welcome to Write More Light. My name is Sarah, and you are hanging out with me today, courtesy of the Midwest Writing Center. I am super excited to follow up with you about one of my favorite things. We've done a couple videos on it already, and that's the Seed Journal. For what it's worth, it's totally unclear where I got that name, but it stuck with me. And the little background information on what a seed journal is, this is where you keep all of your ideas, all of your little combinations of sensory observations, words that sound really good together. And so hypothetically, you know what I'm talking about, and you've been with me when I've talked about it in the past, and you've got one going. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, probably check out my seed journal videos. But first, at the end of the video, I'll talk about what's up at the Midwest Writing Center, then we'll do a free write. So first things first, if you don't yet have a seed journal and you're going to stick with me in this video anyway, jot some things down, get a piece of paper, go grab your paper and pen right now, or I guess if you're on your phone or computer, there's probably an app for that where you can take notes. I will read you some of the stuff in my seed journal, and you can use that. I also have a couple of my favorite books sitting next to me, which are also useful for our seed journals. We will dig into that. So this is my OG seed journal, my original seed journal. And this was a list. This was all of the sections that a professor of mine suggested to have in a seed journal. Are not listed anywhere. Some of them are observations, some of them are adjectives. They're see, hear, smell, touch, taste, including, the sound of typing and how it differs from laptop to desktop to typewriter. Different kinds of computers. I know that when I use a proper keyboard on my desktop computer, it sounds way different from how it sounds on my Apple laptop. And of course, we all know the sound of a typewriter, right? I've got the feeling of a cavity starting, or the first time you notice it, the sound of metal scraping plastic, pressing on a bruise, getting a pill stuck in your throat, toothache, a two-type ponytail, gives you a little headache, knuckle cracking, also the sound of knuckle cracking, the smell of other people's sweat versus the smell of your own sweat, the smell or texture of mold. So jot down any of these if they speak to you. These are examples from my seed journal that we're going to take advantage of in a minute. The sound of the word pustular. I don't actually know what pustular means. Or the sound of a dry sniffle, like rug burn. Silverware on glass. I think when you're clinking a glass for a toast, but also the scraping of silverware on like a plate, which is totally different from if it's like plastic picnic flatware, or the sound of plastic picnic flatware on styrofoam plates. That's a very specific sound. Taking a big eye goober out first thing in the morning, that always makes it's not an everyday thing, right? If you got a really big one, it always makes me tear up. Good sore muscles, also sore muscles. The smell of the living room. I don't really want to know what that meant. But there's also, I had this period when I lived in, when I had roommates, or I would walk in the house and there would be a smell, apartment. And it wasn't like a bad smell, but it was definitely distinct from the hallway. And, normally you live in a place and probably 10 minutes into being in the room, I wouldn't notice the smell anymore. That's a thing. Sound of a pencil on a bath mat. This is a bath mat. It's like a semi-cloth paper. That's a very distinct thing. alarm clock lights, kerosene, terpenoid oil. So if any of those spoke to you, those are ideas you can use. Dishes clanking, smell of grass, smell of an ashtray. That is like one of my very last smells I want to smell. It's different from a cigarette. It's different from a lit cigarette. It's different from the terrible sound of my cat screaming. It's different from it's a different smell. The dead cigarette smell of an ashtray is special and awful. Burning the back of your throat when you like swallow something really hot, that is a terrible, terrible feeling. The smell of a hoof. I don't know if anybody's spent time with horses or other hooved creatures, but I used to. And you clean out their hooves like at the end of the day, and that is a smell you don't forget. Sore feet. Oh, I love that one. Some people don't work on their feet, but like there's a very specific feeling at the end of the day if you stand all day. You're like, this is a different kind of sore feet. Itchy nose allergies, when you're nervous and your chest hurts, soiled sheets from oily, salty, dank, dirty hair, oil, stale. Biting too close on your fingernails. If you're not a nail biter, you don't know that feel, but I know that feel. Okay, so you've got that, right? You've got some stuff in your seed journal. The smell sweet and green like sap, and the smell of an overused kitchen, rotting leaves, burnt espresso. That is a smell I know well. Visual details, shiny wood, bumpiness of paper. That's a fun one. I forget sometimes that paper has texture because normally I think we think of it as smooth, but it is very textured. Bumpy leather, dull metal. I'm looking through for overheard stuff. And the smell of curry and pepper. A dusty, clean smell of plaster, like drywall, I think is what I meant here. Overheard stuff is my favorite, so bear with me, please. Drinking songs, that's a fun one. Really anything could be a drinking song, but I mean like lyrics of drinking songs. Gunmetal gray, that's a fun one. Rules is a fun one. Something I really love is rules out of context, right? I know we've all heard, I assume we've all heard like mind the gap is what they say on the subway in London. She says, not having ever been on the subway in London. Or like pedestrian crossing. These are public utility signs. Oh, I have a noun list here. Chambermaid, Christmas, hair, adjective list, scabby, sore, thin, torn. Heirloom engagement rings, that is a noun. Collarbone sticking out a little. Questionable definition of reality. Taste detail, the taste of water in a new place. Here's some overheard advertising. Do you have it in you to be my blood buddy? I'm guessing that's like for a blood donation or transfusion or something. Stolen ring buoy, stolen life. Mine's a large one. Advertisements are fun and horrifying. Okay, so you've got your list, right? You have been diligently adding to your seed journal. My current one is sad, so that's why we're not using my current one. It's relatively new. You saw me start it, and it's just new. There's not a lot going on there. Then maybe you don't have a ton going on in your seed journal, but you do have some favorite books. I'm grabbing, this is public domain. You can find it online if you want to read it. Stephen Crane's Maggie, A Girl of the Streets. I haven't looked at this in quite some time, I confess. But I'm just going to look for places where I underlined. And this is chapter 16, the very last line of chapter 16. I don't know what it says. As the girl timidly accosted him, he gave a convulsive movement and saved his respectability by a vigorous sidestep. He did not risk it to save a soul, for how was he to know that there was a soul before him that needed saving? I don't have a great idea for how to use that one right now. Okay, here's a better one. His hair was plastered over his brow with infinite correctness. That's a great one. Because from this sentence, his hair was plastered over his brow with infinite correctness, we can replace words, right? We can replace the word plastered, we can replace the word brow, we can replace the word correctness and come up with a totally, totally different sentence that is our own, but also has a totally opposite message, but fits the same rhythm. So you know exactly what it means when someone's hair is plastered over their brow with an infinite correctness. Like this is somebody who stands up straight and is super, super proper. Like you know this person. So if their hair is blowing over their brow with infinite indifference, it's a totally different message. Like that's a very casual person. So that's another thing that we'll write down. Just a favorite line from a story can go into our seed journals. But importantly, write down what it's from so that you don't think you came up with it and then plagiarize Stephen Crane on accident and lose a whole lot of money because plagiarism is bad. Here's another one. Again, still just Maggie, Girl of the Streets. Her smile was no smile, but when in repose, her features had a shadowy look like a sardonic grin, as if someone had sketched with a cruel forefinger indelible lines about her mouth. Again, we can't just take that line, but someone had sketched with a cruel forefinger indelible lines about her mouth. We can use that, right? But maybe it's not a cruel forefinger. When in repose, her features had a shadowy look right? So we're saying at whatever point in time, this person looked like someone had sculpted with what kind of finger, right? We're saying this woman is scary looking when she's not trying to smile or when she's just chilling. But maybe it's a gentle finger. So those the sculpted lines are faint. Or maybe it's not an indelible line, right? So that's more stuff that I would throw in the seed journal. I would definitely note that someone else wrote that line because I don't want to use it and then regret it. And then here is the fun part. We're going to go to make a new document. And so in your seed journal, you've also got ideas for poems or for story starts. And there's a couple things we can do here, right? We can do a not found, but kind of a found poem out of things that we've come up with ourselves. I'm going to screen share here. and we're going to write a found poem out of my seed journal. Okay, so I'm just going to get my bath mat here. You can do this with me in your notebook or just watch me. But I've got the smell of ballpoint pen ink, feeling inside of I can't read my handwriting, I'm sorry. Okay, the smell of ballpoint pen ink, sound of bugs on a light, bad nostalgia, taste and smell of lipstick. Smell of someone else's sweat mingled with my own. That's not on my paper, but I did have a verses in the seed journal, my sweat versus someone else's, and that's got a whole message to it now, right? I'm gonna flip the page over. Oops. Sorry, everyone, we're doing this live and I'm sloppy. So obviously this isn't like a great work of art, but I'll add one line so these look a little more even. Okay, so anyway, clearly we don't have a masterpiece here. I didn't have a huge intention. When I do this ordinarily, I would say, okay, I've got a story in mind, an essay in mind, a poem in mind that I want to write. But I am just not up for that level of vulnerability today. Sorry. And so I'll say, okay, I want to write about how young people start drinking coffee. And I want to use nice language. And I've mined my seed journal for nice language. And then I'm sitting down and I'll make notes, right? I'll copy it down somewhere else where those words work. Or we can do a found poetry thing and then cut and paste and try and find a message from this. So you were here the whole time. You know, I wasn't strictly sticking to something specific. And I was just sort of pulling lines off a bath mat. But now I'm going to see what kind of theme do I have here. The smell of ballpoint pen ink, sound of bugs on a light, bad nostalgia. Okay, so I kind of like that, right? This right here for me says I'm having bad nostalgia because I smelled this familiar smell. You know, the like, here's a ballpoint pen. That ink has a different smell. It's like, I don't know how to describe it, but maybe you know what I'm talking about. And then the line works. And the sound of bugs on a light. So we all know that sound, that little like ding, 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 and they just keep flying into it. So this 3 lines here. gives me a nostalgia message. I'm into it, sure. Taste and smell of lipstick, the smell of someone else's sweat mingled with my own. Okay, that's a sexy set of lines. A blister turning to callus, an itch you can't reach, rotten whipping cream in chunks. That's so gross. Back pain from giving up on sitting up straight. Every time I read that, I'm like, okay, I can do it. Old lady perfume, hitting a bruise you didn't know was there. This section down here doesn't work as a unit so well. I think I'm going to take out the rotten whipping cream. I think I'm probably going to cut out the back pain, but I like an itch you can't reach next to back pain because that's where the itching is hardest, right? And also for whatever reason, it feels better when other people scratch your back. These are all observations that are worthy of writing down, but probably make them more eloquent when you do it. But without the back pain from giving, well, okay, so I'm gonna copy this and delete it. I'm gonna put it down here like and let's add the rotten whipping cream. We're gonna keep these down at the bottom. They've been deleted, but they still exist. They're worth holding on to potentially. Probably the rotting whipping cream is gonna be better suited to like a domestic poem, or when you're just trying to add details to a scene, you've got somebody cleaning a kitchen or making whipped cream or a roux, and they're using whipping cream and suddenly they're having a bad day. When I say domestic poem, I mean a poem that exists in the domestic setting, right? So Sam Green or Mark Rahe, I don't know how to say his name. Those two, or is it Samuel Green? It doesn't matter. They're both poets, and they both write domestic works about making dinner or tending a garden, and they're very stirring poetry, but they take place in the home. So whatever's happening in this poem, like rotten whipping cream, seems like that's where it's gonna be. For me, when I've run into rotten whipping cream, it's either because I forgot it was in my fridge, or I've been a barista and like unexpectedly your clientele goes down, and so you have a lot of milk products to throw away. Weirdly, I have no idea how that would have been relevant when I was doing this, so that's interesting to me, but nonetheless. Okay, so then I kind of have maybe not old lady perfume, but these lines here are about some frustration and some injury and some as they work together. It feels like there's some frustration. There's a definite physicality, right? And maybe the way injuries heal, right? Blister turning to callus, that's definitely healing. Your body's protecting itself when it does that. Hitting a bruise you didn't know was there. I would put that before the blister turning to callus, right? So then I've got like a healing theme, like we're getting hurt, but we're healing. An itch you can't reach doesn't so much fit there, but I'm gonna put it first because that's a frustration leading to another frustration, leading to healing. Maybe instead of bad nostalgia, because that's kind of a vague sentence, I throw that there. And then old lady perfume goes into, so these are all sensory. And I've got a setting almost right here. For me, this is like, okay, someone is writing, it's nighttime in the summer, right? Bugs are hitting the light. Bugs are out when the weather's warm. Bugs are attracted to light. They're not going to be excited about light during the daytime. Then old lady perfume adds an element that's not there before. And then I love this, and I know I just did it, and you're watching, this is live. It's clumsy, but then old lady perfume goes into the smell and taste of lipstick, which like for me, those combined is like that aunt or neighbor lady or whatever who insists on kissing you every time you see them when you're a child. And you get a lipstick print on your face and you're like, cool, now I can just smell this all day. And when do I get to wipe it off? Or you try to wipe it off and you just smudge it and you get it on your hand or your sleeve or whatever. And then, or this is not a unit and the smell and taste of lipstick is related to this. Mixed sweat. Again, this is the point of this is it's a writing practice, right? It's an exercise. It's making us stronger. It's making us see more. It's teaching us to read ourselves better. This didn't exist. These lines existed on a bath mat moments ago. And now they're turning into something. They're a unit. Maybe it's, oh gosh. I keep wanting to say triptych, and that is not at all the word I mean. The triptych is a set of 3, but that's not what I mean here. Yeah, so I think that something, if this is a unit that's going to stay, something needs to happen here, and I need to decide if there's if this is like a sexy thing or if this is like a childhood thing. Those are different. Depending on where you want to go with it, you're going to need context if this is the piece that you're using. Definitely, this is nobody's final draft of anything. But if I want to keep these 3 here, what we're doing is we're setting a scene. It seems like it's nighttime in the summer and there's a writer and an old lady. Or like we found old lady perfume. You know, we got to really interrogate that within ourselves to figure out what we want to have going on. And here, you know, and you can keep cutting and pasting and moving around, but that's how we will use our seed journals. This here, you know, I looked at these each as separate segments, as separate stanzas to see how they would fit together, but then as one unit, it needs some work. But again, it is fresh and brand new and like 3 minutes old. So there is that. This is a fun, clunky little lesson here on how to use your seed journal. Next up, I'm going to tell you what's up with the Midwest Writing Center. Thank you, by the way, for hanging out. I hope that you will now be able to feel a little more comfortable using that seed journal as a resource that you yourself created, curated. You know what you're into, you know what you're observing, you know what sounds good to you. You don't have to write about old lady lipstick. Like I said, normally I would come to my seed journal with something in mind that I want to write. I wasn't ready to do that with you today. So we created something fresh and without intention, and that's still an excellent exercise just to keep you spry in your writing. It's important to have these little workouts. Now, what's up the Midwest Writing Center? We've got our Iron Pen contest. I obviously love being here with the Midwest Writing Center, but I'm sad that I will not be able to compete because that too has been a really good exercise, a really good workout for me as a writer is participating in that contest. And for some reason, not being able to compete in the contest kind of takes the, adrenaline out of participating. It's a great exercise if you're able to just like write flash fiction or flash poetry or flash nonfiction, then good on you. But I really need a catalyst for stuff like that. So that's coming up February 26th at 5 p.m. We will drop the prompt. So that'll be on our website. That'll be on our social media. That'll be on our phone. If you call us, that'll be the voicemail. And if you sign up in advance, it'll come straight to your email. It lasts 24 hours. It's $10 to register, but every single registration gets you a chance to win full tuition for the Collins Writers Conference this summer, which is amazing and insane and awesome. You can register for as much as you want, as few as you want. You can do 3 poems and 1 nonfiction, that sounds like a whole lot of work to me, but you do you. You know what you're capable of. You know how to challenge yourself. We also have next Thursday, February 18th. I may totally have the date wrong on that. I mean, I know the date is right. I don't know the day of the week. February 18th, 7 p.m. We've got an open mic. So it's our annual local lovers reading, but this time it's just gonna be the open mic. I'm gonna be signing folks up for that. So hit us up, send us a private message, send us an email, and let us know if you want to participate. That'll be really fun. It's one of my favorite events of the year. And it's been so long since we've seen each other and seen each other's writing. Also, if you would like the link to the Zoom meeting because you don't have Facebook, or you'd rather not try to stream it for whatever reason, go ahead and email me. I'll get you that link. We're still doing our bespoke poetry. That's custom written poetry by poetry professionals, written for you. We ask you a few questions. You tell us, who the poem's for, what the purpose is, how you feel about it. Give us some details, and we'll have a professional write you a poem. We also offer we're calling it a Valentine version, although the deadline for getting this poem to you by Valentine's Day has passed. Which will look like this. We'll type it on a typewriter on homemade paper. It is gorgeous. I've also done a heart-shaped one. It's really fun and beautiful, and definitely one of a kind keepsake. So that's really cool. Those start at $20, and we need 5 days to get it back to you. And the last day for you to get one of those is February 28th. That is in March, sorry, March 15th, we've got our journaling for mental health workshop that is free or donation. It's a collaboration with NAMI of the Mississippi River Valley. That's the National Alliance for Mental Illness. And it's going to be really great. We've got 3 really, really talented, really, really intelligent workshop leaders for that, and it'll be really beautiful. So moving on, if you're going to take off now, I hope that you continue to write more light into your life. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope that you do take advantage of that seed journal. Probably you will come up with something much better than the strange old lady perfume poem that I made here with you today. Now, for those hanging around for the writing prompt, I challenge you to use that seed journal. If you cannot, if you don't have one, if you didn't like the little pieces I gave you to write down while we were hanging out, fine. This is free write time. This is time for you to do you. You know your writing. You know what you need from it. So I'm putting 5 minutes on the clock, and I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to plug my computer in the meantime, but I'll be free writing with you. So. I know that alarm's about to go off, and I'm like very anxious about jumping when it happens. It was better this time. All right, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I did a free write because I already played with the seed journal today. I am actually, I think, going to post the product of a seed journal at some point as an example that is not happening in the moment. I think that's a very messy way to do things, and I'm really into that. But I also want you to see that it can be productive and useful. Maybe I'll keep messing with that weird poem. I don't know. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. As always, I hope that you write more light into your life.